Okay, I show it's 4 minutes after 4. We'll go ahead and convene the meeting of the Lancaster Neighborhood Vitalization Commission. The first item on the agenda is a roll call. Brenda, would you call roll?
Okay. Commissioners Harris.
Here.
Rooms.
Here.
Moulton. Here. Stoltz. Banks.
Here.
Vice Chairman Dearberry. Chairman Sturdivant.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd ask everybody to please stand. I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's see, at this time we'll take public business from the floor. This is a time for citizens who would like to address the Lancaster Neighborhood Vitalization Commission on any agendized item. Please complete a speaker card and identify the agenda item you would like to discuss. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Do we have any speakers?
No.
Okay, thank you. Going on then, the next item is the consent agenda. The only item on there is the approval of the Lancaster Neighborhood Vitalization Commission meeting minutes of September 6, 2011. I'd ask if any commissioners have any additions, deletions, or changes. If there are none, could I have a motion for approval?
I move approval.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Banks and a second by Commissioner Moulton. Would everybody please vote? Okay, the motion carries 5 in favor and 2 absent. Okay, the first item of new business is a report on LACDC's rent comp analysis of voucher units in the city of Lancaster. We have Emilio Salas from LACDC to do the presentation. And we appreciate once again, Emilio, you coming all the way up here to speak to our group.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Actually, this week, I was just commenting to Mr. Levin this weekend. I drove up to Oakland to watch the Raider game. So that after that drive, this one is a piece of cake. So, I am here to give a brief presentation regarding the rent study that we undertook. And this was in response to a request from the Commission to take a look at our rent structure and to ensure that the rents that were being paid to landlords from the Section 8 program were in line with what the market here in the local Lancaster area. To make sure that there wasn't a skewing of the rents or a spiking of the rents as a result of the Section 8 program. And what I committed to do was to do a direct market analysis by actually surveying current rentals within the Lancaster area. In addition to that, we would also survey other areas within the Antelope Valley to include the city of Palmdale, the outlying areas, Lake Hughes, Pear Blossom, and also do a rent comp analysis. And I do have that information. I do have, the interns did a good job in putting together a report. They're actually still finalizing it, but I have enough data so that I can present to you what they found. And I just wanted to go over briefly the methodology and some of the things that they actually found during this analysis. We hired 3 interns back in June to go ahead and do direct data gathering. They went ahead and took a sample size of over 1,000 listings, which included listings within the cities of Lancaster, Palmdale, and other cities in the outlying AV area. They also made sure that within each of the respective cities that they visited various neighborhoods, that they didn't just concentrate on one area, but encompassed the entire neighborhood in all of the cities that they surveyed. And what they did, and in the end, was they compared the rents of the surveyed units to the contract rents that the Housing Authority is currently paying. In terms of the methodology, they began back in June and went all the way up through August 12 and surveyed a total of 1,007 units. And what we asked them to do was not only to survey the asking rents, but also the closed rents within the area. We wanted to ensure that by getting the closed rents, we were actually getting what tenants were actually paying at the time that they leased those units. They also went through the internet to gather information. They drove through all of the neighborhoods, knocked on doors, did telephone interviews, collected flyers, and also had several meetings with property management companies to determine how they actually came to arrive at the rents for their particular areas. This is a listing of the websites that they actually visited in collecting their data, which they also went directly out to the neighborhoods. But I just wanted to show you this to let you know that they did a pretty comprehensive search. It included the AV Press, which was recommended by the Commission, and also other websites that listed rental units for this particular area, including MLS. I showed this map previously, and this was just to kind of give an overview of the areas that they were targeting and surveying. At the time that I showed this slide, they had just been about halfway through their rent study. So this does not show all 1,000 units that they surveyed, but I didn't have an opportunity to geocode that database. But I just brought this as a reminder that they did visit all of the areas within the Antelope Valley, and we will talk specifically about what they found in the city of Lancaster. This represents about half the sample size. And just wanted to talk a little bit about this. I'm not a property manager per se, but when going through their methodology and in their interviews with property management companies, we did find that the property management companies, along with the Housing Authority, both weight the rent structure on these particular variables. These are the most important. There are other variables, but these are typically the ones that have the biggest weight. Property type, is it a single-family home or multifamily unit? Square footage of the unit, the number of bedrooms. The year built is very, very important because you could have comparable square footage, comparable bedroom size, but the year built did certainly have a bearing on the rent structure. And last but not least, one of the most important is the geographic area where the units are located. I myself am not too familiar with the city of Lancaster, but just in reading through their report and their neighborhood observation, just wanted to summarize a little bit about what they found. For example, in East Lancaster, the rents were typically lower than in West Lancaster, and amenities had more of an impact in West Lancaster. For example, a pool generally garnered about, on average, $100 a month more within West Lancaster. Whereas in East Lancaster, the amenities didn't seem to have much of a bearing on the rent structure. They were pretty much all the same. Since there was a large stock of quality housing within West Lancaster, the amenities were what made the difference within the pricing of those units and the rents that were being asked for those units. The bulk of the surveys that we did were for single-family homes, although we did also inventory quite a few multifamily homes. The majority of our clients on our Section 8 program live in single-family homes within this particular area. So we wanted to make sure that we were comparing apples to apples. Also, it should be important to note that they surveyed unassisted units. We wanted to make sure that we had a good comparison. So we didn't want to go survey Section 8 rentals, obviously. We wanted to survey only unassisted units and then compare those to the rents that were being paid by the County of Los Angeles. And this is a little bit busy, but I will show you, I want you to concentrate on this particular area here. This is a breakdown by bedroom size. The 0 bedrooms, there were very few units both in this area and in this area, so that the averages really were too skewed. The sample size was too small. But as you can see, the bulk of the units that are assisted through the Section 8 program are in both the 3-bedroom and the 4-bedroom. 3-bedroom and 4-bedroom, these two right here. Those represent well over half of all of the assisted units here in Lancaster. If we start with those two, for example, you will see this particular column represents the rents that the county is currently paying by bedroom size. This column here represents the results of the rent study. Here is the difference in dollars and in percentages. So if we go by the one with the largest number of units here, 740 units in the three-bedroom size, on average, we pay about $1,272 a month. The rent study yielded about $1,231 a month, a difference of about 3.2%, or $41. In the four-bedroom size, you can see this here, this was almost dead even. It was off by $1 on the four-bedroom sample size, and that was a 0.06 difference. Where we had the biggest differential was right here in the two-bedroom size, where on average we were paying about 7.6% higher than what the rent study yielded. And if you total all of these together, on average it's about 2.7% difference between what HACOLA pays and what the rent study yielded. We thought this methodology was better than actually looking at, originally we had talked about looking at Rentellect, which is the software system that we use to do the rent comparables. But in the end, after we get the rent comparables, we then take other factors into consideration, such as if it's a multifamily complex, what are the most recent rentals within that particular complex? If the owner has multiple units that they own, we look at other units that within that they own, and make sure that they are all in line, that they are not trying to then spike the rent as new renters come on board. So the difference here, I believe, can be attributed to how recent the data is. When we started looking at Rentellect, the addresses and the rental listings that they had within their system were between 6 months to 9 months old. So if there's any movement in the rental market, that would tend to lag behind by that period of time, whereas this column represents the current market as it is today, because they did it over a 3-month period, and then they went ahead and came up with these particular numbers here. We don't anticipate that the rents would fluctuate all that much within 6 to 8 months, but it is possible. When you start getting a downward or an upward trend, that rental will lag behind a little bit. But as I said, in the end, you can see that the difference is not significant. However, I am somewhat concerned with this particular number here. I believe anything over 5% is something that needs that warrants a closer look, especially since we do have 400 units that are within this particular column right here. So we are meeting with the vendor to determine why there is this particular difference in this bedroom size when all the others tend to be pretty close. And then, as I said, in the end, the average rents differed by less than 3% when compared to the rent study that was done. I don't have the actual hard copy report that they're produced. As I said, they are still finalizing that. But this particular slide is the real meat and potatoes of what they did. This is the end result, and what I think everyone was wanting to see how that comparison was. Yes, Commissioner.
Question, Mr. Salazar, on the two-bedroom units. That's a mix of standalone housing and apartments?
That is correct. It's a mix of the two.
Okay. What I'm thinking is there's a lot of, there are probably in the inventory a lot more two-bedroom apartments than there are two-bedroom homes for rent.
That is correct.
Because most of the homes that are built are 3 bedrooms and up.
Correct.
So that may account for some of the discrepancy there, but.
Yeah, we're going to take a closer look at this one right here. I mean, I do want to pay particular attention to that to find out all the variables associated with that particular bedroom size.
Thank you.
I appreciate the information you've brought, and honestly, I assumed when this item was placed on the agenda that you would be coming in showing your rents were 10% below market rents, and to have the result come out to us, I think increases credibility with at least me and hopefully other members of the board. I am curious now that those numbers are up there. When the survey was done, it had a particular mix of multifamily and single family. And my question would be, is that roughly comparable to the mix of contract rents that you have between multifamily and single family?
Yes, it is. And I wanted to make sure that they gathered both, but they mostly gathered rents for single-family homes. But I wanted to make sure that they sampled everything that they could. And we had people assigned to specific regions to make sure that we got a pretty decent sample size from each of the communities. So that was the instruction that we gave to make sure that they got single-family homes, multifamily units, duplexes, townhomes, all of the different variables that we have, and that it was reflected of what we currently, of the clients that we have here currently.
The other thing that
So it is representative.
struck me is that the inspectors who go out and inspect these units also, I assume, collect comparables as they are determining the rent to be paid on the next voucher unit in Lancaster. And for the summation of all that information gathering from many individuals who work for the Housing Authority to come within 3%, I think is very, very good. The other one is, my memory may be a little faulty, but I believe HUD comes in either every year or every second year and performs basically this same function themselves, don't they?
That is correct.
And they have not found a problem with the rents you pay versus comparable private market units, have they?
Right. They do a similar comparison and look at the contract rents that we're paying and also do their own independent survey in different neighborhoods to make sure that they are in line. And I wanted to clarify one thing. When you mentioned that our inspectors are going out to get rent comparables, that was actually the way we used to do it, where we used to have the inspectors that go out to do the annual housing quality standard inspections. They would knock on doors or they would try to collect information from that immediate vicinity. It wasn't the most efficient way of doing it, and they've got many doors slammed in their faces as folks didn't want to share their information. So we went to an independent software system that gathers information from the various communities. And that's where the question arose, was that particular software accurate? Was it taking things into consideration such as geographic location, amenities, all of those things? So we then went back to the old-fashioned way and had the interns go out and actually knock on doors, gather information from the websites to validate what the software, the results of what the software system was giving us, to make sure it was in line. So that was the work of the interns that went out and walked the neighborhoods for 3 months.
I'm afraid I dated myself.
Yeah.
Mr. Salazar, I have a couple of questions, if I might. Does your finalized report, is it going to, number one, break down, like for instance in the 3-bedroom where the rent is $1,272, is it going to break down how many of those units are actually Section 8 and actually what area they're in? In other words, you've got a 3-bedroom house in Quartz Hill as opposed to East Lancaster. It'd be interesting to know what the study difference is between the Section 8 rents and the actual rents are in Quartz Hill as opposed to, let's say, Little Rock. And I think that's what a greater disparity perhaps could be.
Right. What this represents is only rental units only in the city of Lancaster. This is very specific to Lancaster.
Okay, or East and West then. There could be a great disparity between East and West as well. Mm-hmm. The other question I have is, when they do the study like this, is there information as to what the voucher is for as opposed to what the unit that's being rented for? I think that creates a bigger problem, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. In other words, if there is a $1,300 voucher for a 2-bedroom that's for L.A. County and they're renting a 4-bedroom house, to me, that's where a lot of the problem is. And I was just curious to know if the study actually reveals that.
The study doesn't reveal that, but we do have that information, because what we wanted to make sure we were doing here is just to make sure that the Section 8 program was not having an impact of increasing the rents in the private market, driving up rents in the private market. That's what I understood to be the concern of the commission. So we looked at actual bedroom size that they were in, what they were paying for that bedroom size versus what you would pay on the private market for that very same unit, to compare apples to apples. We do know that there are probably about 70% of the clients that live up here in the Antelope Valley are in a residence that is of a higher bedroom size than their voucher. Okay. So that certainly is a separate discussion, but I wanted to make sure that we kept this clean in reference to from my perspective, the purpose of the study to see what impact, if any, the Section 8 program had on the private market rentals. But I can certainly, and I think I may have shared that information in previous meetings, that the specific percentage of voucher holders who have units that have more bedrooms than their voucher size. But I believe, if from memory serves me correct, it's about 70%, I believe.
Mr. Salas, I just wanted to echo what some of the other commissioners have said. We really appreciate the effort. I mean, having data like this really helps us make decisions and can kind of refute some of the common misconceptions that might be out there. I still think the issue that Commissioner Harris brought up is probably the prime one now that us as a commission, and maybe with your help, have to take a look at it a little further. But this data really helps, and I appreciate the effort. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other commissioner comments?
I just wanted to ask Mr. Salas to convey to the interns who did this, congratulations on a good methodology. It's a very professionally done study.
Thank you very much. And they did do a great job. I have to say that there were three young individuals who really took this project very personal and started, they had a lot of ideas. I said, let's just keep focused on what we're here to do. But certainly they were very energetic, and we appreciated their work.
Thank you very much for all your work. I know it took a lot of time to compile all that data and then present it in this format. Thank you.
Yeah, we really do appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
If you're ready, we can move on to item number 2, which is your report on Housing Authority matters.
I just have 2 items to report. We had, in our main office here in Palmdale, we had a flood in the office building about 3 weeks ago, and we had to relocate all of our staff to a building. Actually, we were lucky in that there were some office space adjacent to that office building, but it certainly created some difficulty for our clients who were confused and kind of saw our sign. And so if there are any questions that come up to the city or anything relative to that, they are now back in their office as of today. There was a main line that broke, a 2-inch water line that broke in the ceiling. So there was about 4 inches of water in the entire office space, and we had to relocate everybody. But everyone took it in stride, and we're happy to report that everything is back to normal as of today. Also, I was hoping to bring back some information relative to our budget. Right now, we have been looking at the proposals that have on the marked up bills from both the House and the Senate. They both are looking to cut the program in 2 different ways. One of them aims at cutting the administrative fees exclusively, and the admin fees are what we utilize to administer the program. The other bill aims to actually reduce the program altogether. So we're monitoring both of those very closely. We don't think anything is going to be finalized until December if we're lucky. But you never know. You never know what's going to happen in Congress, but we are monitoring that very closely. We are making provisions by having several different plans in place depending on, what bill actually gets passed in the end. And as a reminder, we did get a significant reduction in admin fees back in April of this year, which resulted in the layoff of about 25 employees of the Housing Authority. And right now, we're pretty lean in reference to staffing. And we're very concerned over what the final bill will look like. But certainly, we will keep you updated in terms of the impact that it may or may not have on the voucher program.
The cutback in admin fees in April, was that a permanent cut, or a one-time only cut for this current year?
That was the appropriations for that specific year.
Right.
But because, due to the debt ceiling compromise, we know that there are going to be numerous cuts to discretionary spending, of which ours lies in that category. So we anticipate that there will be further cuts. In speaking with folks in Washington and HUD, they certainly are anticipating further cuts both on the public housing and the Section 8 side. But what we're simply asking for is maybe some regulatory relief if something like that comes about, so that we can absorb the administrative cuts. This past cut came with no regulatory relief whatsoever, so we still have the same requirements with less staff to actually fulfill them.
Okay. So the administrative fee cut being contemplated at the present time would reduce the already reduced admin fee further?
That is correct.
Wow.
So it's on top of the cut that was already made.
I see.
Do you have any bill numbers for those bills? Do you know the numbers?
I don't know the numbers offhand, but I think percentage-wise, it would probably be an additional 10 to 15% cut in admin fees on top of what was already cut, and that was about 15% cut that we received in April. The concern that we have is there really is no basis for that cut in terms of some sort of a study or analysis to demonstrate what it takes to administer a single voucher. I think if as housing authorities are learning to survive, they say, well, if they could absorb a 15% cut, maybe they can take another 10.
Lisa, maybe to answer your specific question, I know HUD.gov on the web usually has information concerning progress on these kinds of matters. Yeah.
One of the other unknowns is on the public housing side. HUD did offer to actually give back $1 billion or take back $1 billion from various housing authorities that they had in their reserves. And they are still going through how they are going to determine which housing authorities they will take those from. So on the one hand, housing authorities were building up their reserves because there was a shortfall in the capital fund that we used to actually modernize and upkeep the buildings. And so that funding may now be offset and be reduced by the amount that you have in your reserves. So if there was a housing authority out there that was saving to actually modernize their building, that money will now be taken away from them, basically. We, at this point, what we've been able to monitor, we don't foresee that we are going to be negatively impacted by the offset, per se. But on the Section 8 side, that is a huge impact to our program. This past month, the city of West Hollywood just voted to have us absorb their program. They had a very small program, about 90 vouchers. But it's gotten to the point where it no longer makes sense for them to administer it. So we absorbed them. About 5 months ago, we absorbed the programs of 5 other small cities. There is talk of other medium-sized housing authorities like Inglewood or Pasadena that are probably going to start knocking on some others' doors to see if they can be absorbed by some of the other larger housing authorities. They haven't approached us, but they may approach the city of Los Angeles or some of the other regional housing authorities that are larger. Once the admin fees get cut to a certain degree, if you have a small program, unless you're willing to subsidize it with city funds, you can't run it.
All right.
Yeah.
These continue to be interesting times in the field of low-income housing.
Yes.
Okay, well, we want to thank you for coming up here and sharing with us, and really appreciate the information.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, due to the efforts of a very particular commissioner, I'm going to turn item 3 over to Larry Grooms to introduce.
Thank you, Commissioner. Item 3 is there primarily because since our last meeting, something became very public. It was already public, but it was Assembly Bill 109, which was passed by the legislature and signed by the governor, and it is called the California Public Safety Realignment Act, and its basic purpose is to change the way the state of California deals with its prison inmates. This is being done and to meet a federal mandate, judicial mandate, that the state of California shed about round numbers 30,000 prisoners from the state prison system. It is intended to shift the responsibility for many people who are now in the hands of the state to the counties, and they will be housed ostensibly in jail or under a house arrest or in some other fashion by the counties. Now, I don't want to talk about whether this is a good thing or a bad thing in terms of law enforcement and recidivism and the operation of prisons. I don't think that's our responsibility, but I do think if the other commissioners agree that this is something that is very likely going to have some effect on the quality of life here in Lancaster and certainly in the greater Antelope Valley, and it is something that we might want to ask good questions of, because this thing just went into effect last Saturday, October 1st. And so here we are, certainly not ahead of the curve, but maybe pretty close to the wave. What percentage of these folks that are being shifted from the state system to the county, and it's also going to change the way people are incarcerated. People who have in the past gone to prison will now go to county jail. People who might have gone to county jail will go nowhere. And nobody knows exactly at this point what this all means. But the state has said, and the governor did a press conference last week talking about this, and he's pushing for a $1 billion, he wants to put it in the Constitution that this thing is going to be paid for forevermore. And for this year, it's being paid for out of the vehicle license fee fund and from sales taxes. So based on the fact that something is coming, we don't know how big it is or how much of the money and the programs that come with this we might be eligible for. I'd like to ask the questions if that's okay with the rest of you.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it might also be helpful. The Los Angeles Times had an article a few days ago that I think I'm going to go ahead and read so that everybody has the flavor for this topic. It says, under the new law, prisoners who commit nonviolent and non-sex-related crimes, such as low-level drug offenders or thieves, will be kept in county jails instead of going to state facilities. And when released, these prisoners will be left for county probation officials to monitor. Los Angeles County supervisors have bemoaned the change, saying it could lead to a surge in crime and lawsuits. Money for the added work will be provided by the state, but only for 9 months. Although Governor Jerry Brown, as Mr. Grooms pointed out, and others are calling for a guaranteed source of funding in the future. Los Angeles County District Attorney Stephen Cooley has also criticized the plan because he believes it will increase crime and lead judges to impose shorter sentences for criminals because they know the county already has overcrowded jails. The county will not experience a large increase in prisoners or parolees at first. There will be about 600 new inmates at the end of October, according to estimates from state officials. County probation officials say they could have up to 120 new parolees to oversee by Monday. This was this previous Monday, in addition to their 50,000 other clients. But those numbers should increase steadily. 4 years from now, county sheriffs could have to find space for more than 8,300 new inmates each year, according to state officials, although some of those could be sent to drug rehabilitation centers or put under house arrest. Larry, I appreciate you bringing this forward as an item. I think it's a very important item. I know you and I had a earlier talk before this meeting about the possibility of some state officials coming in here to give us really the full picture of what likely will be encountered. And I think that you have a very good idea to have a series of questions, hopefully that could be answered through that process.
Yeah, I think from the law enforcement side, that's probably for another commission or other entity to consider. But in terms of the social impact it's going to have, because it's been mentioned in all the articles and in the news conference by the governor, that we're talking about mental health services, we're talking about education, we're talking about job training programs, we're talking about jobs, and a lot of other things that supposedly the state is going to provide some assistance to the counties on. And I want to just be sure that when that assistance arrives, along with the problem it's intended to help resolve, that we're going to be able to participate in that. And I think it would be a good idea to ask the people who are making the plans, what do you plan to do here? Mm-hmm. So, and I'd like to ask some of our elected officials to help us make the invitation to the state people and to the county.
I think that's an excellent idea. Today's LA Times had another article indicating that the city of Los Angeles is looking at transferring 150 policemen from patrol to county jails to handle the additional workload. So there's those kinds of impacts also to consider in this. How do the other commissioners feel about this topic? Is it...
I definitely think it's worth weighing in on, and if we could get someone from a state office or a representative thereof to come and explain better to us how we're going to be affected. I mean, the number one question in my mind is what percentages of these inmates are actually going to be coming here to the Antelope Valley, and how we can directly work with that.
Larry, I know you've come up with some specific questions to be addressed to potential state officials.
Sure.
Did you have a feeling about whether contact with the sheriff's office ought to be made so that we can get the flavor of how they see the situation unfolding?
I hadn't really given a lot of thought to the law enforcement because, that's almost, I mean, that is the most pressing issue, I think, for most people, is how is this going to affect public safety? But for this particular commission, I didn't run my train of thought down that track. I thought, let's look at the effects beyond the question of whether people who are being now they say that people are not going to be released early, although I think that's a distinction without a difference. I think that's a procedural kind of an explanation. Yeah, you're not being released early, you're just being released on time, on the new time. But one of the things is, how do they calculate how many men and women are expected to be released in northern Los Angeles County, including the city here? How do they know? What housing assistance is going to be available to them? Will they be eligible for any programs that exist here? Is this going to be subsidized or non-subsidized? Given that we have the most affordable housing in Los Angeles County, what programmatic safeguards and controls are going to assure that we don't receive a disproportionate number of inmates being returned to L.A. County? And I understand that could number into the tens of thousands. And, You have people coming out of prison. Can we accommodate 80, 90, 50%, whatever it is? But it would be good to know in advance what it's going to be. Are these inmates going to receive any kind of benefits to get them started, tide them over, outside of the normal release programs? And I'm not even sure those are going to be in place until somebody tells us. What continuing education or job training programs are going to be available to them locally? And has anybody correlated that with the fact that we have an unemployment rate here that is in the high double digits, even though it may have dropped a bit as people run out of their benefits and no longer come back and claim more? With the unemployment rate at what it is in the Antelope Valley, it would be cruel to be training people for jobs that do not exist here. By gender, what percentage of men and women are going to be released that are fully employable? Because I think there could be an upside here. If we've got people coming out of the correction system who are fully employed, who are employable, who have the requisite education and skills and drive, and that's good to know too, because it's not always all bad. But let's find out what it is. Is any assistance going to be offered beyond what the EDD already does? The financial impact of this program on public schools, health care, mental health services, and on the mental health, there's a very specific question. The state has said that mental health patients are not going to be released and are not going to be involved in this. However, their records will always follow the individuals by weeks or months. So how do they know? Again, it's a question that maybe we could ask. But we're going to have financial impact. What mitigation is planned on that? And when state inmates are shifted from parole to county probation, what kind of caseloads are we going to be looking at? I mean, will the probation officers actually have the time to get to see the people they're supposedly supervising? And again, more money, but that doesn't necessarily mean a better result. And what assurances does the public have that inmates deemed to be low risk to public safety are truly vetted against their criminal histories? Are they being checked? If they're being classified as nonviolent, does that mean their entire history was nonviolent, or the crime for which they're currently serving time was a nonviolent crime? And of course, that's an important distinction. And as the program goes forward, who is directly accountable to the cities and communities for addressing or correcting problems and complaints? You often get assurances from on high that things are going to be okay and it's going to be looked after, but when the time comes to pick up the phone and call somebody, who do we call? And they should come with a number. Finally, we've vastly reduced our crime rate here in Lancaster over a good number of years, and how do we assure people that this Realignment Act is not going to cause that crime rate to rise as an unintended consequence? And there's all kinds of incentive here for people to get out of jail with little effort, and I just want to make sure there's an incentive for not doing the things that will send them back. And those are the questions I've kind of come up with so far, and I know you've got more.
Yeah. In today's paper, Los Angeles County District Attorney Steve Cooley is talking about the plan he believes will increase crime and lead judges to impose shorter sentences for criminals because they know the county already has overcrowded jails. Is this, I guess one of the questions I have, is the shifting of overcrowding from state prison system just going to be transferred to county jails and lead to another round of release?
Good question.
Is there any way that we could get someone, hypothetically, from the probation department and from the county that does the actual release so that we're made aware of what the guidelines are of someone being released as opposed to what location they go to? In other words, what determines whether you can go to Bellflower, Lancaster, or Culver City? I would imagine it has to do with family and support system of some sort, but it'd be interesting to know how they're going to go ahead and determine where, in fact, an inmate is going to be released.
I think that's,
That's a good question. Again, because the subject area is so broad, and our charter here, our area of interest is fairly narrow. That may be something that another commission might want to look at, or I'm just thinking in terms of our time and how many people are we going to have here, and how do we want to confine it? Elizabeth, you want to?
I want to say something.
Oh,
I
please.
really think you started out with the right idea of starting with the state, because every county is going to face the same problem as the county of Los Angeles. The whole state of California, we're just not one county. We are the largest county. This is a statewide problem. They've changed a lot of the rules on probation, parole, what's going to happen. So I think if you start at the state level and they explain to you how they've changed everything, then you'll get a better idea on who you want to invite to assist you with understanding what's going to happen locally. Because I think a lot of people locally, the people that have been on it the most and at the forefront are the sheriffs, because they're going to protect the citizens. But when you start going into probation, parole, and all of that, it's all going to change, and how you get released from the county and the state and where you're going to get released. So I think when you started out with inviting somebody from the state, since they have the bill and it's kind of a mess, that they should come and start explaining, and then you can go from there on what you think your role is and where you want to go with it.
I can work with Mr. Grooms on getting somebody from the state to come and speak to us.
Okay.
For our next,
Could we do, is this something we could do for our November meeting? Because this thing is already happening starting last week, so
I will do my very best. We can work on that.
I'll
Yeah.
be happy to work with you on
Okay.
that. And
Yeah.
do we have a notion as to who we want to invite, or should we leave that up to the electeds?
I think we'll leave that up to the electeds, and we'll start there. And then if any of you have ideas on who you would like, then please let me know, and we'll see what we can do there as well. Okay?
The elected official might already know who they think is appropriate to come to that meeting and explain things down to another level. I have a feeling this is going to be, you were at the meetings when we started a long time ago with parole and probation.
Yes,
And
those were very productive.
Yes. Well, we're almost all the way back there and to a negative in understanding what's going to happen to our community with this
Right.
whole issue. So that's how we started, and we might just be back there again.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, along with that, there might be an opportunity for us to get joint information from one of the other commissions, like Commissioner Grooms was talking about. What is it, criminal justice might be looking at some of these very same issues.
Sure. And I wouldn't want to put anybody through, the process twice or duplicate for, and so, if we can focus on areas of, quality of life from this and yeah, with safety as being paramount. I mean, that's the number one job of government. If you can't keep your citizens safe, you probably can't do much anything else. But, yeah, there are a lot of issues here, and I think we can boil them down if we get some people from Sacramento who supposedly planned this thing. And it may be a case of, ready, fire, aim, which is we've kind of come to expect. But let's find out if we can get it down to the details where the devil lives.
Okay, I really appreciate, Lisa, you offering to help Larry on this, and I think bringing some state officials in here would be a very good start on this. Larry, I would ask if you could perhaps email the other commissioners this series of questions. I think we can all spend the next month thinking of questions, since we're going to have the folks in here to ask the questions to. So I would hope commissioners come real prepared to deal with this issue.
I'd like to suggest also, I'm not looking for a gotcha kind of thing. I'd very much like to provide to whoever's being invited to come here to answer the questions, give them the questions in advance so they have no reason to go, well, I really hadn't thought about that yet. Let's give them a chance to think about it and know what the questions are going in. And hopefully it'll save them time and us time, and we'll get right down to it.
Okay. Maybe to help you out on that, let's be real specific. I think Larry would like to see all questions we have so that they can be conveyed to the state officials, say, by October 15th?
Yep, certainly, yeah.
Okay.
Let's put everything in writing so that, there's no question as to what the question was.
Yeah. Okay, very good topic, Larry. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the quarterly update report from the LNVC Tutoring Subcommittee. Commissioner Banks and Commissioner Moulton.
As usual, Commissioner Moulton did her job and provided some minutes for me and made us look good, so I'll give you some highlights from those minutes if you don't mind. One of the nice things about this, we got information on the Trend Impact Home, Paiute Impact Home, Sage Impact Home, Linda Verde, and Kingtree. So what is that, 5 or 6 impact homes that are actively out there, providing services to those neighborhoods. October 8th is a paint day for Central Christian Church, and they will be painting Mariposa Elementary School in its entirety and finish the job they began last year at Sunnydale School. So that's this Saturday. And for anybody that's interested, you can contact Concepcion Harris, and the rallying point will be 7:30 a.m. at Central Christian Church. There was an attempt this summer, it looked like, at a lot of these impact homes to develop an athletic league, and it seemed to really struggle, and they weren't able to get the participation they like. So I think they're going to relook at that and maybe try to develop something over the fall for basketball. What they tried over the summer was like a flag football league between these impact homes, and it really never got off the ground, it appeared.
Yeah, the football didn't do as well, but I know basketball has done well, and they would always appreciate any help with that as far as like maybe providing basketballs, things like that, sports equipment. I know they've, asked for things like that. So, Concepcion, I think, would be the point person for that, to let them know if you would like to provide those.
One of the other interesting things that came out of the notes that Lisa provided for us were the Department of Public Health, September 22nd, here in the council chambers, had a kind of a disaster preparedness seminar, and what the role of churches in our community regarding that are. So I think that was also pretty interesting, where they're trying to involve the local high schools in some of their facilities for relief centers and areas like that. So those are kind of the highlights. I don't know if there's anything else, Lisa, that you wanted to touch on, but those are the things that jumped out at me, and thank you for getting those minutes and providing them to the commission.
I don't really have anything to add. It was very comprehensive, the information they gave us, and I do know, like I said, the basketball was a big hit with the kids and has done well. So they also provide snacks for the kids. So if anybody is interested in providing snacks, they're willing to take anybody's help with that too. So.
Kind of a follow-up on that, one of the other items also is they handed out startup school supplies for a lot of the children there too. So I think they're probably looking for those kind of things. So in the future, what we'll do is continue to provide the updates and written copies of the minutes. I'll make sure that are emailed to each of the commissioners so you can see those ahead of time.
I think that was very good. Commissioner comments? Okay, moving on to the last item. This is usually the item I beg for agenda items. However, I think this time around, I think with the topic that we're going to be discussing in November, I'm going to see if I have consensus on this. I'd like to reserve that meeting solely and only for that discussion, so we can really delve into it to the extent we can. Okay.
I'd like to offer one other subject for future meeting, Mr. Chairman, is I discussed this with Commissioner Moulton also. I'm a member of the Antelope Valley College Foundation Board and have been made aware of a lot of the students out there are struggling and under certain types of financial assistance. And I wanted to maybe get a presentation on the CalWorks program out at Antelope Valley College and how that affects some of the students and some of student housing and how some of these students out there, are able to go through school with some of this financial assistance.
Okay. Is that something you'd like to see for November, or is that appropriate?
No, not necessarily. It's just, I think your idea is a good one to try to limit that topic to our November meeting, and then possibly at a future meeting, December, January, we'll have someone come in and speak on that.
Okay.
If you'd like.
Okay, I'll talk to you about that then. Okay, the next item is public business from the floor. This is for non-agendized items. We request any person who would like to address the Lancaster Neighborhood Vitalization Commission on non-agendized matters to complete a speaker card, and you will find speaker cards on the back table of the council chambers. Additionally, we respectfully request that you fill the cards out completely and print as clearly as possible so that, if necessary, the commission or city staff will be able to contact you either by phone or mail. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. When you approach the podium, please notice there are 3 lights. The green light comes on when you begin, the yellow light will come on when you have 30 seconds remaining, and the red light will come on when your 3 minutes are up. We ask that you be considerate of the allotted time to allow other speakers to have their 3 minutes as well. Following this procedure will allow for a smooth and timely process for the commission meeting, and we appreciate your cooperation. State law prohibits the Lancaster Neighborhood Vitalization Commission from taking action on items not on the agenda, and your matter will be referred to staff. Do we have any speakers?
We have no speakers at this time.
Okay. I have one additional comment before we adjourn. As you may be aware, our City Council liaison, Sherry Marcus, has had to step down to attend to family illness. Sherry was the catalyst for the creation of the Lancaster Neighborhood Vitalization Commission, but she also showed amazing energy and worked very tirelessly to bring many very important matters to this forum for public discussion during the past 3+ years. No one can deny that Sherry was absolutely sincere in her desire to effectuate positive change in the city that she loves. She helped me tremendously in my role as chair, and I owe her quite a debt of gratitude. I'm sure that all my fellow commissioners will miss her and join with me in wishing her well in her future pursuits, and our prayers and good thoughts go out to her and her family. And if there's no further comments,
I'll say, well done and amen.
no.